help the wealthiest families in the U.S. get their kids into school. So I've done 761 what I would call side doors. The front door means getting in on your own. So I've created this kind of side door in because my families want a guarantee.
The new Netflix documentary about the college admission scandal might actually be the scariest movie I've seen this year. Operation Varsity Blues reenacts the wiretap phone calls of Rick Singer, the admissions consultant at the center of the scandal, who helped his clients cheat on the SATs and bribed college athletic directors to recruit his clients as athletes. Singer charged parents up to $6.5 million for his services, revealing just how far the rich and powerful would go to game a system already in their favor. Joining me now to discuss is Dr. Jason Johnson, Morgan State University politics and journalism professor, and Congresswoman Jahana Hayes, former National Teacher of the Year. She sits on the House Committee on Education and Labor. So happy to have you both with me. Congresswoman, I want to turn to you because you were in the classroom. So you have some firsthand experience with how the pipeline created to higher education impacts these kids. The thing that baffled me the most about this documentary is how the wealthy and powerful manipulate the system. This happens in K through 12 as well. What's your take on it?
Well, thank you so much for having me back, Tiffany. And you are absolutely right. This documentary was heartbreaking, but it was not new for me. And for me, the through line is equity. We see at every level what he's calling front door admissions, which means basically getting in on your own merit, disproportionately impacts the students who were in my classroom. When colleges are looking at things like community service, and I've had kids who had to work 2 or 3 full-time jobs to help support their family, or sports, when in some of my districts kids are on pay-to-play programs or can't afford to participate in travel leagues. Even in my state of Connecticut, even before high school, we saw in 2010 where a homeless woman was charged with felony larceny for stealing an education for wanting her son to go to a better school. We see this at every level, and kids, my students, the students that stood in front of me, were disproportionately impacted because their parents couldn't afford a consultant or someone to put their resume together. But even on the other side, traditionally, how these programs are looking at these applications and reviewing students and comparing them to other students who have all the resources in the world and not really beginning to understand that how this translates.
So, Jason, let me ask you, because the Congresswoman makes a good point about how people have been prosecuted for this. You and I have talked about the mother in Akron who was jailed for lying about her address to send her kids to school. One thing I thought the film did here, they kind of went out of their way to humanize the mothers. You know, these poor women, but they were complicit in this. I mean, they knew very well what they were doing. I'm curious from your standpoint, does this kind of scandal happen at HBCUs? Because I haven't really heard anything like that.
We don't have these kinds of scandals at HBCUs as much. And again, I'm glad you're talking about this, Tiffany. I literally found out about this documentary because there's a clip of me on it saying these people should be in jail from being on Stephanie Rule like the morning that this actually
Jason,
happened.
hold 1 second, Jason. We're having some trouble with your audio. So we're going to go back to the Congresswoman. We're going to get your audio together, though, so stay right there. But I'll turn back to the Congresswoman because one of the parts of this film also focused on the challenges of standardized testing and how standardized testing disproportionately and negatively impacts students of color. Congresswoman, I'm curious your take on the role standardized testing plays in the pipeline to college and higher education.
Oh, it absolutely plays a huge role from the very beginning all the way up through college education. We have kids who are, first of all, the information is not being used in the way it was intended. It's supposed to level the playing field and close some of the equity gaps that we see, but we have not seen that on the outset. When ESSA was first rolled out, it was supposed to say that standardized tests were not the only metric, that we should be including other factors, community-based factors, performance-based assessments that students are doing on an ongoing basis. And we still have not seen that implemented with fidelity. So our kids are on one day with one test being judged for their whole academic career. And like I said, in my state of Connecticut, I have some of the wealthiest boarding schools in the world and some of the lowest performing Title I school districts in the country. And there is an equity gap. So when you have kids who have been prepared to take these tests, have consultants and preparation programs and really practice tests and exams, and you have other kids who, I mean, I've seen the whole gamut where kids didn't show up in dress code and couldn't take the test. So now you have someone, they may not have been able to wash their clothes or afford to go to the laundromat. Now their college experience is based on the test on that day because they showed up out of dress code and were told you cannot sit with your class. You're going to take it in a separate room after school. And everything is based on this. It's not fair. And the parents that we're talking about who are convicted of stealing an education have said, I would have done it again. You know, these poor families who are saying, I felt helpless and all I could do to give my kid a shot was send them to the school 5 miles down the road.
Right, exactly. So, Jason, I want to let you pick up your thoughts here. Sorry, Jason, I want to let you pick up your thoughts here.
I was going to say, like, if somebody, look, if you want to cheat to get into college, you can do it. Almost anybody can do it. It doesn't matter if it's an elite school. It doesn't matter if it's a community college. It doesn't matter if it's an HBCU. But I think, as the Congresswoman points out, this is a larger problem about inequality in education. And I remember, I found out about this documentary because there's a clip of me in the documentary from Stephanie Rule's show 2 years ago talking about how all these people should be in jail. The inequality isn't just people bringing resources together to get their kids into schools that they don't deserve. It's also the inequality of they're not suffering consequences that poor people do. You can spend $800,000, $60,000 to make your son or daughter dress up like they do water polo so they can get a position at USC, but regular poor people, if you use your grandfather's address so that your daughter can go to a better public school, you end up in jail. If you're a public school teacher who's trying to rewrite kids' tests so that you can actually get funding to your district, you go to jail. That's where the real issue is. We have an overall problem with education in this country. And I also want to say this because I think it's really important. The kids are guilty too. These students knew their parents were rigging things for them, and that's one thing in this documentary that bothered me. They tried to humanize these moms and also make it look like these kids are oblivious. Look, if my mom tells me, Jason, I want you to dress up like you play water polo and I can barely swim, I know she's trying to pull a fast one for me. This ain't the first time these kids have their parents rig something for them.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The kids, you know, it's how much responsibility do you put on the kids because they are minors. But I take your point that they, you know, were in on it. One of the things that I found interesting about this that was really a mind blower, the U.S. News and World Report college ranking. To hear someone in the film say that's all smoke and mirrors. It's just all about prestige, and so many students base where they want to go to college on that college ranking. So I'm curious, Congresswoman Hayes, as you were in the classroom and worked with students, how big of a factor did the prestige of a college play for a student's aspirations, their educational aspirations?
It meant everything. And especially without the historical context. I can remember I was teaching in New Haven, Connecticut, and I had a student who was accepted into the summer program at Yale, into the Schaefer program is what it was called back then. And for her, it was geography. She said, you know, that's the school across the street. I'm looking, I want to go, I want to travel, I want to do all these other things. So really there were not these family conversations happening at home to remind students of, if this is the career you want to go into, this is the best school for you. They were looking at these lists that were, like you said, smoke and mirrors of where they think they want to go or who the alumni were or what they could get from the school, and not really thinking, how will this impact my future and the job that I want to go into? And also, how much debt will I have to incur to go to this school just because of the name?
Yeah, exactly. And millions of students right now are applying to college. I know a lot of my friends are going through this process with their kids. Jason, I was trying to ask you this before when we had problems with your mic. Do these things happen at HBCUs? Because I'm almost okay if they did. I'm almost okay if somebody said, look, we'll give you $20 million to take my kid. We'll take it. We'll do it. HBCUs need the money. But you teach at an HBCU. What do you think?
I am not trying to get in any kind of trouble with what I'm saying, so I'll repeat what I said before. Look, if you want to cheat, you can get into almost any institution. If you've got a way to give $2 million, $1 million, invest, donating to your school on a regular basis, it is giving you a leg up. And what we define, Tiffany, I think it's important, what we define as cheating versus resources is also part of the inequality, right? Let's say I went to the University of Virginia. If I just give money to UVA every single year throughout the time of my child's life, that's going to give him or her a leg up when they apply. Is that cheating? No. But that's a resource that I can bring to the table that other parents can't. Of course that happens at HBCUs. But I think the difference is this. More often than not, historically black colleges and universities are there to balance the inequality in the institutional racism at predominantly white institutions. A lot of black families wouldn't have the resources to buy their sons or daughters' way into the school. And more likely, HBCUs are looking at the overall academic career of kids when they're bringing them in.
Yeah. I mean, look, Jared Kushner benefit from that at Harvard, as the film gets into. You can check it out. So thank you so much, Congresswoman Johanna Hayes. You'll have to come back. I'm sorry, real quick, we're out of time, Congresswoman.
Real quick, it starts before college. We have to get kids stabilized in preschool. We're talking about even like with this American Rescue Plan, parents going back to work. It's more important. We need universal preschool so that kids can have a strong academic foundation.
Okay, we're way over, but I wanted to let you get that in. Jason, don't go anywhere. You better meet me on the gram after the show. We're going to go live there. And my next guest is making history in a 391-year-old city. I'll tell you who got next right after the break.